Hey guys, it is the tiniest one back with another video for you, and today we're going to take a look at and I need to take a deep breath, but it's the Lian Li 011D Mini V2 because it is the second iteration of the Mini chassis that we're going to take a look at. I want to start though with, it is obviously ATX. We'll give you a basic whiz around. It is ATX, very small and compact, but the only prices I've been given so far are in dollars, and I do have links to British retailers, but none of the links are active, so I can't see any actual GBP prices. But an empty case with no fans is $89. And then they do a version with 5 reverse bladed fans. You get white non-RGB ones in the white case and black non-RGB ones in the black case, and that is $99. So you pay $2 for a reverse bladed fan. Now I don't know about you, even if I don't want to use the fans, I'd probably end up buying the one with the fans in just so that I had them in the man drawer. You know, like when you put them into stock and you might need it later. For $2 each, I think I would just have to grab them. Now, as I've said, pricing, very aggressive. Already a big thumbs up, but we need to have a look around to see if they've cut any corners to have been able to have got that price down. And then at the end, we'll look at the performance because we've done our usual bish bash of tests. And I do just want to say at the start, the RGB fans that are in this, I fitted because I got sent a case without fans, sadly. But it did mean I could use a matching suite fans just like you guys would at home. I would normally start at the front and the top, but I did want to show you the I/O at the front and the bottom of the case, but also it can be put up here on the top. So it's a dual slot one, and I will explain later on that you can pull a bigger section out from underneath to allow better airflow as well. When we remove the top panel though, what it does do is show us that we've got some dust filtering. Now, if I was running an exhaust, I personally wouldn't run this dust filter. I would have it out of the way, and I can't find a particularly easy way to remove it, sadly, and I fear that it might be glued in place. So just a minor thing, I personally would have liked to have removed it if it wasn't an intake, and I don't think anyone should. What we can see on the inside though is slots for 120mm fans and 140mm fans, and you can also see that the 120mm fans are offset. I did get a really decent picture of this because of the clear front panel when I was building it, and you did see on the way down as well, which is why I did it, that it will clear your heat sinks and your memory on pretty much everything. Have a look as it goes back down again, and you'll see back up again, and you'll see what I mean. You do just get a lovely look inside the case, and there is ample room there if we look for clearance. Now the bottom, this I/O, as I've said, can be removed. You can see all the cables on the other side, but this whole section in here can be removed as well to allow airflow. Now at the moment you don't really know why, but the lower fans are angled, and that's not just to push it towards the graphics card at a slightly different route or a different way, but that's because it's raised on this side. In fact, you can see the front panel cables just in there at the moment. It's raised on this side. You can see round the back that it is raised as well, but it's right on the floor on the other side. So you've got this slight incline where the fans are, and this is the area for the fans to be able to breathe and intake. And if you were to remove this panel and this little plastic one over here, it does mean that you'd have all of the airflow all the way around. And that's just a configuration change that you can make at home if you want to. As we were talking about down the bottom, there is also a dust filter in the bottom for the 120 fans. It is just 120mm mount in the bottom, and the mesh is only big enough for 120s anyway. There is no 140s in there, although I suspect if you really wanted to get your mod on, you would be able to fairly easily. Flipping the case on its side, this is the view that you will get underneath. You can see the 2 screws down here that we removed to be able to change the AO position, and then remove that panel at the front, like I said. But also, you get your first glimpse of the fans underneath, and then a very mysterious grommet. Now, effectively, what this grommet does is allow you to pass from the rear chamber into the main chamber of the case, and you can move bigger cables through and connectors without actually needing a humongous amount of room underneath the motherboard, as you'll see in a minute. So the cables are obviously going to be a lot smaller and thinner, and you'll be able to pass those through, and that won't matter underneath the board, but the connectors can sometimes be a problem. And effectively what they've done, if I just pull it off, just so that I can show you, and I should have done this beforehand just so I could see whether this was going to go well or not, and it hasn't. They are, to be fair to Lian Li, now I've done that, they are actually fixed at the top and the bottom, so that is not just your average grommet. They've gone the extra mile, and typical for Lian Li to have done it. So I'll try and pull this. Now this is literally the bottom of my motherboard, and there's not a great deal of room between the bottom of the motherboard and the grommet at all. So what the grommet does allow you to do is pull things through that would not fit normally, squeeze them under, and then it will sit beneath the board quite comfortably. So this is completely hidden. I actually think it's a really lovely touch because it solves a problem that would normally have required a taller case. Now, whizzing round to the back of the board, it's at this point that you can see that the I/O layout, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you've technically got 6 up here, and there is another one at the bottom, so you've only got 5. Now 5 would normally be the amount we'd see for M80X. You get the 2 extra ones kind of at the top and the bottom, and they're hidden. But what you can also do if you want is drop the motherboard down if you've got an M80X and move this little slot up to the top here. So you can drop the whole board down with M80X or M80X. But with an ATX board, you will see, especially when we get on the inside, there are a couple of slots covered up. Now this is only going to matter for those of you out there with either A, quite rarely now, but lots of graphics cards, or B, those of you out there that are going to have a lot of add-in cards. So what you need to assume, if you are looking to purchase this, is the top slot on your motherboard has been lost. Just assume that it's gone. You can move the board down with smaller boards, but not with an ATX. So just assume the top slot's gone. Assume the very bottom slot's gone as well, and you've only got access to the 5 in the middle. If you are only running a graphics card, it will not be a problem. It's only going to be for those of you out there with multiple slots. Now, something else that they do, which I think is amazing, is you actually get a vertical graphics card slot in the box. You don't have to buy it extra, you don't have to wait for them to release it in 12 months when they can be bothered. It's actually in the box and ready to go. You literally just unscrew it, plonk it in, bosh, done, vertical graphics card. All you need to buy at home is a riser cable if you want to do it. Absolutely amazing and quite refreshing with some of the stuff I've seen recently. I do want to show you these screws on the back, by the way, so that when we do get on the inside you'll understand what they do, but they do slide. And if you do want to remove the cages that are on the inside, these do need to be removed as well, and then these pop up. But what we can see here is the power supply. Now, power supply, you can see that is an ATX power supply. A lot of it is kind of hidden within the outside frame of the case, but what they have done quite cleverly, if I remove the side panel, is you can see that the power supply protrudes into the outside of the case, into kind of like the door, and that is because what they've done, if I put the door on, is they've allowed some meshing on the side with a slight bow on it, so that the power supply can sit slightly more external. And what this has enabled them to do is keep the rough layout of the case, but with a full-size ATX, and then there is no extra width implications. They've managed to do it just about all within the realms of this tiny little bevel on the outside of the door that pretty much no one is ever going to notice. We've got more meshing down the front with dust filters in. I have this set up as an intake. I have the bottom set up as an intake with just reverse bladed fans, just in case you're wondering. The side panel literally just pulls off with pop clips, and then that exposes what is going on the inside in its entirety. Now, in its entirety, the first thing that you can see is the Lian Li logo there in the middle. Those holes around the outside are for 2.5-inch hard drives, just your normal average ones, and they would get mounted on the inside. And to remove the panel, there is a screw at the top, and you just pop it out. But it does help as kind of a handy cable tidy, kind of, yes. But it does kind of hide everything. But you can't really see because of what's going on the inside anyway. But the things I showed you from the back that I loosened off, that is the sliding mounts on the full-size 3.5-inch hard drive cages. Now, you can slide them because they can be very handy for poking cables and stuff in. So you don't have to just use them as hard drive cages if you don't want to. I would be inclined to probably leave one of them on the outside and then have the one behind to shove lots of stuff in on. That's what she said. But as you can see, I've shoved most of my cables in here anyway. Something that I always do as well is, yes, I use the same hardware in every case, but I specifically don't overly try to hide things. I've got extra SATA power cables in there as well to kind of show you and imitate a quick build at home. The fans that I'm using aren't particularly well suited for separate daisy chaining. They are daisy chain fans, but they don't really, they need an extension cable to be able to go in between them to make them super tidy, so we can still see bits. The roof's a little bit tidier, and I've also left the majority of the I/O cables in the bottom as well, just so that you can get a feel for it's actually not that difficult to have it not looking horrendous, because obviously once the side panel's on, it doesn't matter. We can see the cabling, the grommets around the outside for Project Zero or BTF boards, although this isn't one, but that it is capable of running those. First thing I will say though is that power supply is right behind your AIO. So if you're a regular upgrader, you're going to end up removing your power supply a fair bit. And this will be the point where if you've got a fully modular power supply, it's going to make your life so easy. But part of me does wish that Lian Li had moved the power supply to the bottom. Maybe have left like a little bit of room at the bottom for cable routing, you know, not gone completely right the way down there. But I think with this much of a space limitation, there's always going to be a trade-off with something, because then your cables are going to be in the way up here. So I think, not that I like saying it, but the power supply was probably the easiest thing to be able to remove. So just to show you through my thought process of why they might have done it. Spinning the case around to the business side of the case. Oh, that one's undone at the back. Right, we'll undo the screw for the side panel, which means we can remove the side. There's no tint to it, white border. It's all very nice and simple and lovely. Then we do have the front panel, which can be removed as well, which makes life really easy for your building. You can actually see that there is the bend at the bottom, which makes life lovely. But front panel off. Gives us loads of room to be able to build. There are going to be people out there that are going to just run their case like this and they want it kind of semi-open. But you can see it's pillarless. There's still an awful lot of strength now the system's built. You could happily pick this up and move it around, so it is very well engineered. In the front, you can see the reverse bladed fans I have fitted. There are a couple of points with the reverse bladed fans with the fans that I did want to point out though, is not all of the screws are in, and that was because I was actually struggling to get the second screw in on the inside. So this one I was actually struggling to get in. Let me just put all you down so you can have a better look. So you can see I was struggling, it doesn't quite line up. Now there is kind of a reason for this. This section of metal here is bent. It isn't straight. So when I try and push the the fan up against it, it's very difficult for me to actually be able to show you. So I'm going to try my best. But that angle there, this one here, there's a slight bend on it, and that does foul the fan. Now, it only does it with the fans on this side, and that's why I've done it. Yes, I could have mounted them the other side, but I need to show you these limitations in the review. It's kind of the point. Also, for me personally, I'm probably going to want my fans out the way, but you do see this part. But it doesn't matter which side I mount my fans, you're going to have this bar kind of playing with the airflow anyway. Also, for me, I did think that I'd want the fans kind of out the way of the grommets. Now, the grommets were the next thing I did want to cover, because the grommet at the top is kind of great because it gives you access to the back of the motherboard for your Project Zero stuff. That's cool. But then the moment you poke a cable through, it kind of all goes bandy. And I do feel like these maybe needed to be a little bit longer or be manufactured with a bend in them or something, just to make life a little bit easier. But then underneath, there is nothing at all. And this is the bit where I do feel there needed to be another grommet lower down. To just go from having a grommet to the next one down, it not being there, it stands out a little bit too much for me. Something here as well is we do have a graphics card support, and sadly for my graphics card, it is just, and I do literally mean just, slightly too short, which was a bit sad for me, but you can just about move it a little bit further down if you want to as well, but you can move it along down on the bottom here. So you can trot it along a bit, but I'm right at the limits of the motherboard. So there's no great answer with this one. My graphics card's just not quite compatible with this layout. It's only an old 1080. We still use it because it means we can compare all of the cases, new and old. But if you've got one that's slightly longer, then you're going to be absolutely fine. If you've got one that's massive, you can even move it further along. There is also a bracket in the box that if you do go vertical, there is a slot that you can mount on the fan if you want to, or you can mount on one of the actual fan mounts in the bottom, and you can have a vertical graphics card support. And that's, again, in the box. Is brilliant. It's great that they even bothered. If we zoom down here, you can see, as I've said to you before, the very bottom slot is not accessible at all. Some cards, I/O for example, don't need screwing in, but it's right down there below the bottom of the fans anyway. It's just not worth worrying about. If you need to use the bottom slot on your motherboard, I'm just going to say this is not the case for you. A lot of motherboards now have stuff in the way of the top slot as well. So if your graphics card sits in the very, very first slot on your board, again, I'm going to say this isn't the case for you unless you go vertical, because if you go vertical, then that top slot is just going to have your riser cable in and it's not going to matter. Beyond that, as I've said, you can fit a vertical bracket in the back. You can see here that I have 2 fans. I haven't completely filled it up, and that is because for our test rig, putting one in the roof and one in the back is actually the optimal way for our air cooler. If we add extra fans in, it actually increases the CPU temp because the CPU cooler is fighting for airflow with the rest of the fans. So this is the optimal layout for our system. I could have maybe got away with putting an extra fan in the bottom but it wouldn't have made a blind bit of difference to the graphics card temps at all. Anyway, so as I've shown you, slight bend in the bottom here, and that's all impacted in the bottom of the case. It does affect the motherboard in what you can fit and what you can get in there. I don't think you can use anything until that second slot up, personally, because you can see it's completely covered on that bottom one. But it's now time to find out how it performs. Okay then, it performed way better than it probably should have done, but we do need to remember I have used 5 120mm daisy chainable RGB fans in the build. Now, prices for things like these can range considerably. You could be looking at doubling the price of the case if you went and bought some of the expensive Lian Li fans. Obviously, you can do it on a budget. I would suggest buying the Lian Li version with the 5 included fans, adding in an AIO and then getting an extra fan for the back, and you're kind of onto a winner budget-wise then. But it really depends on whether you're going to want everything to match. But you do need to remember impending costs. You've bought a $90 or a $100 case. Do you want to spend $150 on 5 fans, 6 fans? Because you're probably, if you're going to do that, you're going to end up changing them on your AIO, etc. But it did perform very well. We obviously did 1000, which is kind of a stressing point because you'd never just leave your system doing a CPU benchmark or playing games with just 1000 RPM fans. But as you can see, you very much can do 1500 RPM and then an absolute maxi chat. I don't think maxi chat is actually needed for this case either. It does breathe considerably well. You've obviously got unhindered airflow from the side, but the extra airflow in the bottom being so close to your graphics card is never going to be a bad thing. A decently set up fan curve, and not only is this going to keep your system cool, but it's going to be quiet as well. You don't need 3000 RPM fans in this case, full stop. Conclusion wise, price wise, I was very, very surprised. I've been sent quite a lot of expensive, disappointing cases recently. This is not, categorically not, underline, full stop, this is not disappointing. This for the money is outstanding. Without a shadow of a doubt, I'm going to give it the value for money award. It's very well designed. It's compact. They've got answers for everything. I think Lian Li are one of the best case designers on the planet at the moment because they're pushing boundaries left, right and centre. I was only talking to a completely different case manufacturer the other day about their case where they had the graphics card all mounted in the front when other case manufacturers were saying it could never be done and it shouldn't be done. And I was like, well, Lian Li have already done it and they put it on the market. But it's an absolute cracker. It's very compact. I think it's best suited for those of you out there that want a vertical graphics card or no extra add-in cards though. It's a gaming rig, but I do think you can easily make the most of it. It's also really, really easily to be able to smash extra radiators in if you did want to get brave and make yourself a full water-cooled system as well. You could easily have a radiator in the bottom, your graphics card water-cooled, another radiator in the side or in the top. It's just not going to cause you any issues whatsoever. So, congratulations Lian Li, very compact, cools very well, outstandingly designed, and it's really nice to be able to review a case and not be moaning about it.